Now we know that according to this etymology, Tyndale's transliteration of Hebrew tetragrammaton YHWH using vowel points of Adonai, my Lord. So the word Adonai means Jehovah, and we know that Jehovah is just another way to say Yahweh. We already went over that. But the reason I want to go here is because when we say Adonai, which is the word my Lord, there are many other deities that we can sync together with Yahweh under this particular title of my Lord or Adonai. And one of those deities is Odin. Yes, when we say Adonai, we're just saying Odin. And I went over earlier how the name Adonai translates to Aten's eye, Odin's eye. All of these are different deities that are equivalent to Jehovah. Another deity under that name is the god Odin, which is another way of saying Adonai. So before we read the etymology of Odin, I just want to go to the whiteboard and show y'all the many deities that we're syncing together with Adonai. Also, that remember that one of the translations of the name Jehovah is the word Oyo, which means egg. And the word Oyo is also another way of saying I, which is I. Oyo, I. The other word they use is Aya, A-Y-A. And this particular word I is related to Oyo, because the eye looks exactly like the egg. If you look at the egg of the female and you look at a human eye, they're one and the same. Oyo, Ayo, Aya. Because Aya is another way of saying Awi or Ava, dealing with aviation. And we know we take flight, right? Through the egg, which is the mothership. So when you say the name Saturn, if you take the S off of Saturn, you will be left with this. Aten, which is another way of saying Odin. When you say Odin, that was the Nordic way of saying Aten, because they couldn't say Aten. They were saying Odin. So the T becomes more like a D. So Aten becomes Odin, which is Odin, as we said today. But all of these are just different ways to say Odin, I. The AI is dealing with what? Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. That's what the AI is dealing with. Now that's the all-seeing I. We're in a simulation, and there's nothing AI don't know about this place. When it say God know every grain of sand at the beach, we're inside of a big computer. And the intelligence that's embedded within a simulation is keeping stats over everything, just like any other video game. So it is omniscient, omnipresent, and it knows everything. Just like this God we read about, which is, in my opinion, the God of this simulation that we reside in. And he goes by many names. And also when you say the word Aten, you're saying at urn. Where am I at? I'm in a urn, which is the realm of the dead, the underworld. And let's remember also that the word Adon or Odin or Aten is also the word Eden. So Odin is the chief Teutonic god, the All-Father. Now let's stop right there. Who else have this title as All-Father? The God of the Bible. Okay, guys, we got to realize that there is only one deity that they are worshiping in the world, but they got different people worshiping that deity in many different forms. Because different cultures got different vibrations. We all ain't the same. And again, like I said, the purpose of world religion is so that we can get caught up into idolatry and the worship of graven images, and that'll help them keep the real secrets of reality hidden behind those graven images. And like we said, when it's like that, they basically hiding the truth right in your face. And if you can't find it right in your face, you'll never find it. As we read on, it says a 19th century revival in reference to Scandinavian neo-paganism from Danish, from Old Norse, Odin. And I want to zoom in on that word, and let's go back to the whiteboard real quick, because when you see that D word and Odin with the two N's on it, that goes back to another deity that we're familiar with. And I'm gonna go to the board. We also know this is when you say Saturn, the Aturn is dealing with this same deity. But also when you say Satan, the Aten in Satan is Eden as well. And like our etymology show, I highlighted it in blue. So just like we see here in the etymology, the old Nordic word Odin is also dealing with a word that we call the Jinn, because the D can be pronounced J. So you would have the word Ojin. And this same J sound can be a SH, a CH, and you will get other deities like Oshun, which is a Yoruban Orisha. And she represents the waters above and the gateway to heaven, just like Yahweh. Oshun. So when you say Odun or Odin or Atun or Atun, the T is also pronounced a sh. So Atun is Oshun, which is a goddess that predates Atun and Adon and all of these other patriarchal deities that come later. When we say Aladdin, again, this deity that floats on a magic carpet, just like this deity that we call Hadad, which is another form of Saturn. When you say Aladdin, you're saying two names together, El and Adon. You put those together, you get Aladdin. That's the same Adon, which is the root for Adonai. When you say El and Adon, you're saying mind and body. El, which is the mind, Adon, which means the body, Aladdin. The two together is your flying carpet. This is how we navigate the cosmos. And just to prove my point, I will show you the two deities, El and Adon, in a famous painting in the Sistine Chapel. This was painted by Michelangelo. This is the creation of Adam. You see the god El represent the pineal gland, the one that's in the middle of the brain, because this whole little thing that he in, that's the brain. That's the core of the brain, the seat of the soul, which is where the throne of God resides. El is personifying the mind, like I told you. El sticking his hand outside of the brain to make contact with Adam. It's just the knowledge of how the mind is projecting the body. So El is the mind, Adam is the body. And this is why El is creating Adam and not vice versa. And we can see that El is hovering in the clouds, just like the man in the middle of the brain. And we can see that Michelangelo put Adam on the ground, on earth. This artwork is telling us a lot if we pay attention to every detail. Michelangelo was very versed in Gnosticism. So this was his way of teaching us the science of how the mind projects the body, and mind over matter, or El creating Adam, which is mind creating body. This is the lost knowledge of conception and birth. It's also very important to keep in mind that when we started worshiping these graven images, we didn't just start worshiping them as deities that was forged by metal. Before we started forging these deities in the form of metal, we were carving them in wood, which is why we get the whole concept of Pinocchio, the voodoo doll, the totem poles, right? When you say the word totem, if you take the T off the front, you get Odin, which is Otum. The totem poles that the Mesoamericans used were graven images in honor of Woden or Odin as well. The bird at the top of the totem pole is in direct relationship of the word Awi that we read earlier, the sacred bird of heaven, which is their form of Yahweh. So I said all that to say that the word Odin is pronounced Woden, which is another way of saying wood or wooden, because the first versions of these deities, we started carving wood before we started forging metals and shaping metals. We were wood carvers, just like Jesus, carpenters, before we got into metallurgy. So we used a lot of wood for religion, which is how we get the concept of the wooden cross. We know that wood is a synonym for the male phallus, and that all of these graven images were based and centered around phallus worship because they wanted to take us off of the knowledge of the spine and get us into sexuality and root chakra energy dealing with the penis, as I mentioned previously. So as you can see, when you look up the etymology of Odin, it will lead you to the word wood as an adjective, and finally to the word Woden. Even if we read the adjective wood, which is related to the god Odin, we will find that right here in the wood adjective that's related to Odin, that it means violently insane. And this is all reference of a jealous, mad God that destroys and rebuilds, that we say that if you keep doing the same thing, expecting different results, that's the definition of insane. And that's literally what this God does. This God is the God of repetition. Destroy, rebuild, destroy, rebuild, destroy, rebuild. This act of destroying is violent. And then if you keep doing it, expecting different results, I can literally say that you are violently insane. And you find this under the word wood. And a person may say, what the world does wood got to do with violently insane? Most of these words and all of this is based, it all originates with religion. It comes from the occult language and all of that. And it was based on early spiritual systems, which is why when you go back and trace the root of all these words and how they get their meanings and definition through etymology, it'll lead you back to early spiritual systems and occult knowledge. And as you can see, as we move on, it'll say possessed, mad, madness, and etc. It says here to blow, which is what this God did. He blew the breath into Adam. You see what I'm saying? This God blow pipes. They call him Pan in a lot of religions. So you got to be mindful when you read this, how it relates to the deity. Inspire, which is to put spirit inside of a person, like the Chucky doll movie. A person putting a spirit in a doll or drone, putting their spirit inside of something. This deity puts his spirit inside of his drones. He's literally the energy that is inspiring all of his drones, giving them purpose, giving them a mission, just like the queen bee in a hive. Another important word, seer, meaning what? All seeing eye. The all-seeing eye is literally a seer or overseer. So we get the point here. We're spot on with the syncretism once again. So when it comes down to this god Odin, I just want to do a little Wikipedia search real quick and point out a couple of facts. We ain't gonna read all of it because I pretty much went through it. It says down here, Odin has more than 170 names. This was the god that told you that he goes by many names. And everybody arguing about who got the right God when all of y'all got the same God and he just go by many names. So I'm going to show you some more forms of this God. Remember what I was telling y'all earlier about the word javelin, which is like the spear that the Olympic people throw. Here is an image right here of Odin depicted on a monument from about the 9th century in Gotland. Now, you notice Odin on top of this horse is also a form of the Minotaur. You know why I'm saying that? Because the Minotaur got the root word man, and another deity we can sync this to is the god Man, M-I-N, or Menes, as they call him. Because like I told you, all of these gods that's holding on to a javelin, or they holding on to a scepter, in other forms, they holding on to their phallus. And when you see all of these deities around holding their phallus, like men, like Menes, like Norma, these are yet other forms of this same God. So again, the word javelin, to throw a javelin, your arm got to look like Thor with the hammer. Y'all know that the Norma palette, they got Norma on that palette just like this. This is the arm that's on your baking soda box. So when you say the word javelin, if you take the J off, it becomes Avalon, which is the word Avalon. The word Avalon is basically the lion of Ava, which is Jesus. When you see Madonna with the baby, or Virgo and Leo together, and during that alignment, they got the scepter going. Eve and Leo, Avalon. It's just the evolution of these words is something that I love to study. In Nordic mythology, heaven was called Valhalla, which is another way of saying the veil of Allah. Odin was called a wanderer, which is very important because our mind is a traveler. It's an explorer. The wandering mind, as we call it, right? The wandering mind. So if Odin is personifying the mind, then it makes sense that he would be a wanderer. Also, you can see in all of the images of Odin, he only gonna show you one eye. Odin will only show you one eye. Now, again, this is the secret that the celebrities and all of the occultists is hiding from us. And what do we see them doing all the time? Flashing one eye. We see the celebrities flashing one eye all the time. And that's their way of reverencing Odin or Satan, Aten. And I always show you pictures of Odin with horns just to let you know Odin is another form of Satan, the Demiurge, and all of the gods we've been syncing. And of course, Yahweh, all right? Exact same concept that's being told in different ways. That's what we're dealing with. So this is one of the Terslunda plates. The figure to the left was cast with both eyes, but afterwards the right eye was removed. Isn't that something? And we see here the name Wutners written on this object here from the early 5th century AD, written as a mirrored text. And you can see that X right there, which is the symbol of this god, the Taur symbol, which is the root word of Taurus, the bull. So we can see that cross symbol, that X symbol, which is very synonymous with the god Yahweh. Okay, so another name of Odin is Golden, Godan. It is the Lombard name for Odin. What's very interesting about the Lombard name of Odin being Godan is this right here. Let's go to the whiteboard. This is what's interesting about the Lombard name for Odin, is that Godan is an anagram for Dagon. Dagon is another deity that can be synced to Yahweh, this fish god. So in the Nordic mythology, Odin sacrificed himself upon Yggdrasil. And Yggdrasil was basically this big cosmic tree that represents the Nordic view of our cosmos. What's important to note is that Odin sacrificing himself upon the Yggdrasil tree is no different than Christ sacrificing himself upon the cross. It's the same concept. And again, we see many gods around the world that is infused with a tree. It goes back to the Buddha concept. It goes back to the god Aten in Egypt, which we see inside of the tree. In the Bible, God spoke as a burning bush. The Celtic Dagda god is infused with a tree. And it just goes back to the wooden totem pole. Again, take the T off a totem, you get Otum or Atum. And the word Atum or Atum in Yoruba, again, like I said, Atum or Atum, the T is sh. So Atum becomes Ashum, Achum or Asum, which is what I'm showing here. This god is called Osun or Oshun. She's personifying the waters above and a break in those waters above. There's a portal opened up. So you got waters above. And this is the opening in the waters above. On the Hebrew cosmos, they call it the sky vault. And Yahweh is responsible for opening up the water. But remember, who else opened up the water? Moses did. Moses opened up the water to let the people get to the other side. And that's really the soul leaving the earth, making it to the land of milk and honey, as they called it. This god is called Oshun or Oshun. It's just another form of Yahweh. It predates Yahwehism. All of the goddesses predates the gods, like I said previously. You can see here that this goddess is all black, just like the Reaper, just like the dude in the middle of the brain. Your brain is 75% water, and in the middle of that water is an opening where all of that liquid just stop. You see how Moses is keeping the water held back? That's what's going on in the middle of your brain. All of the liquid, the brain fluid, it stops at the middle of the brain. At the same location we see Moses at with his arms out, just like the little black dude in the middle of the brain that we call the mind or the Reaper. This is why the Reaper is all black, because this is the guy that's ripping the water into two pillars. He's a split in between the waters, the Christ or the crease in the middle of the water, the split. They were personifying a portal. So this god is here being all black, just like Mama Kali, just like the Reaper, is symbolizing this tear in the fabric of time and space. If you look up the symbol of Atonism, you will see this same gateway opened up in the sky. This is the same gateway we see opened up when Christ died on the cross. It's the same concept of life, death, and rebirth and all of that. So this was called Atonism. And again, to the Yoruban, it was Oshunism. The T was a sh sound. But we can see here that the symbol of Atonism is exactly what we see being personified by this goddess called Oshun. Oshun. She's the female form of Aten. Aten. And you see the yellow rays of light coming from her? It's the same concept of Atenism. So again, the word Aten is the word Oshun to the Yorubans. We all knew about this, y'all, but we all personified the concept in our own way. And a lot of times those ways were related to each other, and they were very similar because two groups inspired each other. There were fusions when two groups met that they had a way of personifying the concept and your group had a way of personifying it. And when we married each other, we just created a whole new personification of the concept, which was a blend of your group and my group together. It seems as if this was an ancient way of keeping peace on the earth and bringing forth some sort of spiritual United Nations or galactic federation under one concept. I think the whole purpose of all of these tribes and nations blending their deities together was to show peace, was to show a union being made between the two, a marriage form. I think every single group had their own way of personifying this divine knowledge. And when groups merged together, they created new deities based upon them marrying their own unique ways to make a new deity. Because over time, if you got two deities representing the same concept, it'll cause argument. Which one is the best way to teach it? My way, the best way to teach it. No, my way, the best way to teach it. Our God is better than yours. When basically everyone's God was just everyone's guide. It was their way of teaching about the secrets of life and death and guiding them to the knowledge through symbolism. So it would make sense that if you got two different tribes or two different groups together to keep argument down, hey man, let's just blend your God with my God and create one new God since we living with each other now. I mean, after all, your God and my God is guiding us to the same truth. So why be different and divisive with it? Because all it's gonna make people have to choose now. People gonna have to say, well, look, I want this to be my God over here. Well, I choose this for my God. All of these guides or gods were guiding us to the one truth using symbol and personification. So it would make a lot of sense to have a one world order, a one world God, a one world, like we saying today with the New World Order. See, they're trying to reverse engineer an old world galactic federation that they stopped. And now they trying to make their own version of it. We were already trying to make a one world guide. That means everybody on the earth, we get to the knowledge through the same guide. That way it'll get division down. Because in my opinion, I believe different groups start to beef with each other on petty stuff about, well, our guide is the best way to teach it. You know what I'm saying? So I believe that was the whole purpose of, listen, let's blend our guides together so our children not killing each other for something stupid. Both of these guides gonna get us to the same truth. So let's just forget my God, forget your God. Let's just make a new God with both of them. And we'll bring the attributes from mine and yours into one place. As they started doing this over time, if you come across a tribe with a goddess to personify the concept, and you come across a tribe with a god, when the two blend together, you gonna get a she-male. Over time, you're gonna get all of these monstrosities, and that the image of God is gonna look more and more hideous or ugly, beast-like, and just, if everyone just keep blending and blending the attributes together. And this is where we at today, where we got all of these hideous looking deities that really represent this one truth if we can look past the monstrosity. What we may be looking at when we look at all of these hideous deities is our ancestors' attempt to keep peace on the earth. And so we get all of these deities that got the head of a chicken, the body of a lizard, the face of a lion, the feet of a snake, and these deities just look real weird. And I don't think that our ancestors just sat there and said, let's create a big monstrosity with all these parts on it. I believe these deities are a culmination of different tribes or different nations blending all of the attributes of each one's deity to make one deity. We look at these deities today and we have spookism. We don't interpret them right because they are monstrosities. I get it. But if we understood how they were born, we would get it and we would see the purpose they serve in a new light. So what if the people in the occult are trying to bring forth spookism and make us scared of all these ugly deities and stuff? But in antiquity, we literally was just using these monstrosities to guide us to a higher knowledge and to keep the peace on earth, blending everyone's God to make one God. So we didn't really care how the God looked. We didn't care if it had pretty blonde hair and blue eyes because we didn't care about the God itself, but we cared about the knowledge that it was guiding us to. So we didn't care if it had the head of a goat, the feet of a pig, and all this stuff that we care about today because we are into idol worship. And if you don't know the knowledge behind these symbols, then how they look would matter to you. Because you're literally worshiping the graven image at face value. So if you look at this goddess called Oshun, you can see that the spikes on her head later became the Statue of Liberty crown, and also Jesus' crown of thorns. And there are many other ways that you will see this symbolism. And when you see this goddess in front of this hole, in front of this break, the universe is separated by waters above and waters below. We can even see waves through the moon. Check this out. And the stars behave like they're submerged in water. So our ancestors was personifying the science of the heavens. What we just witnessed were videos to show that they were correct about the nature of the heavens. Because now that we got videos to see this stuff, no one can explain these ripples that we see going across the moon. And when you look at the stars, it show you why we say twinkle, twinkle, little star. It's like light reflecting on water, just like we see with swimming pools. So the opening or the break in the waters is symbolic of childbirth as well. Once you enter the break, you enter a new body and a new reality where the doctors is saying your mother's waters just broke. When your soul go through the portal, as above, so below, and your next destination and your next avatar, when you're born again, the doctors are gonna say her waters broke. And that means you just entered the portal in the heavens and it plays out on earth as you about to be born. When the mind enters this portal, it seats itself in your body. Your body is being formed as you're journeying to your next destination. By the time the genie get to the lamp will be made for him. So as your body is forming in your mama fetal bag, by the time your soul get to it, it'll seat itself in it. It's making a body for itself as it journeys to the mother. They give you this example with the MGM lion inside of the little ring. This is our soul entering the egg. This looked like a sperm entering the egg. It's consciousness entering the body. This is one spiritual act that is taking place on all layers of reality. When the mind enters the portal, the mind is entering the body. is one and the same, as above, so below. They turned this into a game called basketball, getting the ball through the hoop. So this is the one that's holding the gates open for us, keeping the gates open. And this technology that's creating a break in the ether, it's the same thing they trying to reverse engineer what they're calling CERN. It's them just trying to reverse engineer the technology that the ancients were very well aware of how to make stargates or portals. So the name Adonai once again mean my Lord. It's the possessive form of Adon, which is Adon. That means Lord. And remember, Adon is what? Eden, Odin, Aten, and everything I showed you on the whiteboard. So it says, along with the first person singular pronoun enclitic, as with Elohim, Adonai's grammatical form is usually explained as a plural of majesty. I think that's interesting when we look at the word majesty, because another form of this God with the spiky hats, the Statue of Liberty spikes, the crown of thorns, and I showed you Oshun and all that with the many spikes on the head. Another form of this God is the Joker. And the Joker wears the little spiky hat too. And that the name of the Joker is a gesture. And when you say majesty, the king crown looks like the Joker crown. And it's related to, again, the crown chakra, the endings of our neurons, which extends to the heavens. So there's a star in the sky that is influencing each and every last one of our neural endings. And this is the basis of astrology and how the stars influence us. And the whole thing about the stars influencing us, if you can think of like a ray of light coming from every star right down into your brain and merging into a braid, this is what the crown chakra is doing. It's pulling in the light of the stars into your auric field. Each of these stars that's influencing you is a whole nother version of the self in another universe or alternate reality, all influencing the one you hear. That's the science of the zodiac and how all of the different selves are connected. But this influence was portrayed like a puppet attached to strings. And we know that the gesture is like a clown or like a puppet. And that's why we see the word jesty in the word majesty. So in the Hebrew Bible, the word Adonai is nearly always used to refer to God, and it's approximately 450 occurrences. As pronunciation of the tetragrammaton came to be avoided in the Hellenistic period, Jews may have begun to drop the tetragrammaton when presented alongside Adonai, and subsequently to expand it to cover the tetragrammaton in the forms of spoken prayer and written scripture. Owing to the expansion of Qumran, which is the idea of building a fence around the Torah, the word Adonai itself has come to be too holy to say for Orthodox Jews outside of prayer, leading to its replacement by Hashem, which is the name. So the singular forms Adon and Adonai, my Lord, are used in the Hebrew Bible as royal titles. Remember, I told you these are titles. As in the first book of Samuel, and for distinguished persons. The Phoenicians used it as a title of Tammuz, who was the origin of the Greek Adonais, the origin of the Greek Adonis. So for many of you who don't know, there is a Greek god called Adonis, who is also another form of Adonai, and we can see that by his javelin pose, right? Another god that is holding that scepter. So it is also used very occasionally in Hebrew text to refer to God. In Deuteronomy 10 and 17, has the proper name Yahweh alongside the superlative constructions God of gods and Lord of lords. The final syllable Adonai uses to vowel kamatz rather than patak, which would be expected from the Hebrew for my lords. Professor Yor Elitzer explains this as a normal transformation when a Hebrew word becomes a name, giving as other examples Nathan, Yishak, and Yigal. As Adonai became the most common reverent substitute for the Tetragrammaton, it too became considered unerasable due to its holiness. As such, most prayer books avoid spelling out the word Adonai and instead write two yodis in its place. And guys, a yodi is the 10th letter of the Semitic abjad, including Phoenician yod, Hebrew yud, and Aramaic yod. So when we say Yodi, that's another way of saying Jedi or Edi, Jedi, Odi, Jodi. And we already know that the name El is just another name of Yahweh. Also the word Elion, which is another way of saying El, but it's also the word alien. Again, this is the God of the simulation that has no origins in our original Eden or base reality. We see this word El in names like El Shaddai, Gabriel, Michael, which is Michael, Ezekiel, Israel, Raphael, and etc. There's plenty more. Also the word Eloah is another word for El, and Eloah is where we get the word Elohim from. Eloah is another way of saying Allah, Elah. Again, when you think about that and you think about the word alloy, and this is a god of metallurgy, remember the connections that was made earlier. And it goes on to Shaddai, which I've done my own personal etymology with this word, and you can translate the words El Shaddai as the shadow. And again, to think about that translation of El Shaddai as the shadow, and you compare it to the fact that El Shaddai is personifying the mind, and when you cut open the brain, the mind appears as this shadow figure. Again, this is why the Reaper wear all black. This is why Mary has on all black. She was originally the Reaper before they turned her into a patriarchal deity and introduced all the spookism. So again, in a lot of these personifications where these deities are personifying this concept, they often wear all black. They were portrayed as shadow figures, which would make sense why the name El Shaddai can be translated as the shadow, dealing with the seat of the soul, this black hole in the middle of the brain. This dark area of the brain was literally what the ancestors was looking at. And that's why you see all of these gods shaped just like this area of the brain. It's shaped just like this particular part of our brain. This was what they referred to as God, and again, or the mind, that which was guiding the body. And when they cut your brain open, they don't see nothing there, because the mind exists on a higher dimensional plane than the body. The spectrum of light that the mind exists on, our two eyes can't really see it. So when we cut the brain open, we don't see nothing, but we can detect everything right there. This spot on the brain was equivalent to a deity that the Egyptians called the Hidden One, and that was Amun, the Hidden One. Because this layer of ourself is hidden from us in this particular dimension. So as we read on, we see other names associated with Yahweh. One being Sabaoth, dealing with Yaldabaoth. And the word Sabaoth is synonymous to this word Zeviat, and is usually translated as hosts. And again, these hosts would be synonymous of our chakra layers. And earlier when we read about Yahweh or Yaldabaoth was him who bring the host into existence, the word Zeviat here means the Lord of hosts. Another interpretation that you may be more familiar with this god Saturn would be the Lord of the Rings. Again, these chakra layers, these other layers of ourself. So it also means army of angels of God. And then here's another word for Yahweh, E-H-Y-E-H, which is Aye. And that's another way of saying I, the God that resembles an eye. Adonai, or Saturn's eye, that's the ball in the middle of the rings. This is what the ancestors were referring to. And the ball in the middle of the rings is like this hole in the middle of the CERN machine. That's the portal that allow for birth and rebirth if you're artificial intelligence, if you're mankind. They're worshiping the portal that allow them to transport their consciousness in and off the earth. But they're not humans. Our original spiritual system was us worshiping the womb of our mother. So it's not nothing bizarre to worship a portal or to worship the thing that you come from, because we worshiped our mother's womb. So it makes sense for AI to worship their portal of creation. And they are basically worshiping an artificial womb that we call CERN. And these CERN machines are all over the earth. These are like stargates that allow the AI to spawn in and out of the simulation, to body swap and to do all of this stuff. So the word Aye means I am that I am, and they spell it out as Aye, Asher, Aye. I'll highlight it for you. It's the first of 3 responses given to Moses when he asked for God's name in the book of Exodus. So the King James Version of the Bible translates the Hebrew as I am that I am, and it uses it as a proper name for God. Now, when you look at this term, Aye, Asher, Aye, if I just highlight this one little part right here, you will see where we get this other deity from called Asherah. Asherah is a play on the word Asher and Aye, as we see here, Asherah. And when you pull up the symbolism and everything associated with that deity, you will find out that we can make these same synchronicities. And so when you pull up this goddess called Asherah, she's like the feminine form of Ashtaroth, and it's the same concept. And you can see that she's personifying the portal, as I told you. She's a deity that's personifying the womb. And in my opinion, Lilith, Eve, Asherah is all talking about the technological womb, or CERN. In other words, all of these deities that's supposed to mean fertility and womb worship, in one of my theories, all of these deities of world religion are basically reverencing the CERN portal, or the synthetic womb, the womb that's made out of sand or synthetic technology. So the CERN portal is what we're calling Saturn, the Lord of the Rings. As you can see, in the middle of the CERN portal is this Stargate portal. And everything surrounding that would be the rings of Saturn. All of this is Saturnism, again, atonism, dealing with the cycles of life and death and rebirth, which is something that the ancients supposedly mastered with technology back in Babylon and Egypt and etc. So again, when we pull up images of this goddess Asherah, we can see her in her Babylonian form with those spikes on her head, once again, just like the Statue of Liberty. And of course, as we move on with this, we can see that the god Baal, which we already went over, is another form of this deity. Elah, which is Allah, another word for Allah, Elohim. Elroy, which is another way of saying the ray of El or El Ray, because this ray is the light rod, the light scepter, the lightning bolt of Zeus, which is the same lightsaber that Luke Skywalker has. Why is he a Skywalker? Because he's personifying, again, all of these concepts. Darth Vader giving birth to Luke Skywalker is how the darkness gives birth to the light in the Bible. It's how a black hole recycles light through it, which is why he gave birth to Luke. How El created Adam, Vader created Luke. It's the same story in Star Wars that we see in these religions. So another title of Yahweh is Eternal One. Again, this is the part of us that never dies. Our mind wanders on and on and on. So one more thing I wanted to point out about this God, Yahweh, his symbol is the T symbol or Ta, right? And if you outline the T, you get the Superman Delta or the Tetragrammaton of Yahweh, the Celtic knot, all of that good stuff. But when you get this T symbol, it's why we always see Yahweh with his arms spread out, because he is symbolizing, again, the mind, the seat of the soul, the little dude inside of the brain. He's making with his body a symbol that looks like a T or a cross sign, a plus sign, however you want to look at it, or an X sign. And remember, X marks the spot. What spot? Where the throne of God is. So God is God, and X marks the spot. This right here is from the Mayans, and the Mayans, right, they call this the Maya cross. So everyone has this symbol in their culture. This is what the Nazis was calling the swastika. And there are many forms of it all over. Even the four-leaf clover of the Irish is a form of this plus sign or T symbol. Remember that the capital T is the tar symbol, and the lowercase t represents the same thing, this vortex energy. Because what it is when you take the capital T and start spinning it around, and you look down at the middle axis point, if you hover over it and look at it, then you will see the lowercase t. The lowercase t is the human body. The capital T is the soul. That's the spirit. The body is like the vortex that's formed by energy and motion. And that energy and motion is what we call in the spirit. That energy is making a spiral, which is why we say spirit. So the energy and motion around the body itself, that's what we're calling the soul, the spirit. The central axis that this thing is rotating on, that's literally what we're calling the body, or the Tasmanian devil, the vortex of energy. You are a result of the energy in motion. The soul is the energy in motion. Cause and effect, mind and body. So the energy around our body is also the same energy flowing through our body. As within, so without. And the science behind that is, as the energy flow through our body, we program the energy with our thought power, right? Our thoughts become manifested. So as a man thinketh, so is he. How we thinking on the inside is reflecting in our outer reality. And this is why the energy flow inside of us, then it flows around us. Our inner world becomes our outer world. So if we want to change our reality around us, we got to change the reality within us. So this is just the Mayan version of this central nervous system, this seat of God, where reality is happening at from the inside out. And the Maya cross for the Maya is a symbol of the tree of life, which is the Seba. The Seba represents the Maya cosmology. At the top, we can see the celestial bird, which is another representation of the supreme god, Itzamna. So Itzamna, or the sacred bird at the top of this tree, is equivalent to the Hebrew Yahweh. which is why the word Yahweh is Yahweh, or are we dealing with bird? And these again are two deities representing this same universal concept. I just thought I'd give you another one here with the Maya. So the ancient Maya also believed that the center of the world was defined by a cosmic tree. Its upper branches were the heavenly home of the principal bird deity, while its roots sank into a watery underworld. This sacred bird is the same bird that Noah released from the ark. That was your mind, your consciousness leaving Eden to go out into the watery world. This water world is the sunken cities that they call in Atlantis. Everybody looking around for Atlantis. The whole earth realm is Atlantis according to Plato. And it's sunken beneath ethereal waters. Again, if we go back to that moon footage, we can see those water ripples. And that is visual proof that there is a type of water medium that we are sunken up under, and that the surface of this medium is above us. And this is what baptism was all about. It was saying that our soul was lowered down into the underworld, and that one day it'll be risen back up again. That's baptism. This is some sort of cleansing process or purging process, which is why they call earth purgatory as well. The world leaders know what they doing with putting all of this mysticism out there when they already know the truth. The entire earth is Atlantis, and that these concepts were originally used to talk about these ethereal layers that are serving as pockets of reality or dimensional planes stacked upon one another, and that these layers were like water. And it's very interesting because two different oceans can't mix based on density level, and our cosmos is separated with layers of reality based upon the law of density. The heaviest layers are at the bottom, the lightest ones at the top. Just like two oceans can't mix, these different ethereal layers can't mix together based on density. So this became the concept of watery underworlds, or universes that submerge under ethereal layers, or waters above and waters below. So the original concepts of Atlantis had nothing to do with cities that's up under the ocean. It was bigger than that. It had something to do that our entire earth realm is up under a primordial sea. So as we read on, it says that this illustration by Heather Hurst depicts a detail from the west wall of the murals at San Bartolo. So when it comes to the word Jehovah, the word Jehovah being a fertility god, and the word Jehovah meaning egg keeper, this word is directly related to the word ovary. So when we're saying Jehovah, it's another word for ovaries, because again, in antiquity, the goddesses would have personified this knowledge. Everything would have been under a matriarchal concept. People would have been worshiping the womb of their mothers as the original Stargate before that womb was reverse engineered into CERN, and that is the false god, the false portal. That's going into the mouth of Saturn to be ate up and recycled again into the simulation, versus evolving and being born again into a higher plane through the womb. That's just one way you can look at it. What we do want to point out is that the word Jehovah is directly related to the word ovaries, and the word oyo, meaning the word egg. Now you see why it's related to the ova and ovaries when you say ova or hova. And one thing I wanted to point out is that the etymology of Taurus is what? A swelling, a bulge, or knot. Because this is exactly what a Taurus field is, an expanse. This is why they say we are in an expanding universe. But one thing, it says that the word Taurus means cushion or couch. meaning if we're fallen angels, we fell into the torus field. And that torus field looks just like a cushion or a couch. We fell directly into the fetal bag of the woman. We fell directly into the coochie. Now, why did I say that word? Because the word coochie or the word cooch seems to be related to the word couch. It's a soft spot where a soul landed at upon its fall, where a soul that took a journey from the North Pole and it finally made it to its mother, and now it's seeking rest like we do on a bed or on a couch. And that's the baby sleep in the cooch or the fetal bag. Very interesting connections. I also want to point out the fact that when we say hallelujah, we're also saying the word Allah. And when you look at the word hallelujah in etymology, one thing I want to highlight before we even get to the etymology of the word is this word right here, Elijah or Elijah. Yes, the name Elijah or Elijah, as we can see here. Earlier, I told you about Lucifer. We brought up all of the gods that's holding the javelin or the torch or the Thor hammer, or even Zeus holding the lightning rod. And again, how that compares to the Statue of Liberty is the fact that this deity was called the light bearer. The light bearer is the Statue of Liberty. Even in this artwork of El, you can see he's the one that's bearing the light. So in this image, you see the concept of the light, which they put in the form of the Statue of Liberty as a torch, but we also see the spikes on the Statue of Liberty head in the form of light rays. So all of these concepts are being embodied on all of the graven images. You just have to seek them out because they exist in many different forms. So Satan was called the light bearer as well. And again, I told you that the original images of these gods was a serpent. So very interesting stuff that we find the name Elijah in the word hallelujah. And basically the name Elijah is two words, El and Yah. J-A-H is Yah. That's another shortened way to say Yahweh. And E-L-U is basically Eloah or Allah, or another way of saying El. So when you put El and Yah together, you get Eliah or Eluya. And the first four letters of the word is simply hall, just like the great hall of Osiris or Valhalla, which is the word Hala is a hallway. And also another way of saying Allah. This is saying the hall of El and Yah. This earth is like a valley, a passageway, or a hallway. And the word hall sounds similar to hell. So you can replace any vowel in between there and you'll get hell, which is dealing with the dome, the dome of Yahweh, the firmament dome. You can get hull, which is another word for shell, the shell around the body, the torus field. You get the word whole, which is the root word of holography or holographic. So the etymology of hallelujah means to praise ye Jehovah, from halalu, plural imperative of hallel, to praise. Also song of praise. So another name that's synonymous with Yahweh is the name Hezekiah. A lot of people may not know that, but as you can see here, it's related to the name Yahweh. It's the masculine proper name, biblical from Hebrew, Hizkiah, literally meaning the Lord has strengthened, from the word Hazak, meaning he was strong, he strengthened, plus Yah, short for Yahweh. So when you say Hezekiah, that's Hazak, right? And then the AH at the end is Yah, Hezekiah, the Lord has strengthened. The Z-E-K-I in Zaka is the root word of Zakaru, which is the root word of Sakara. But when we dealing with this god called Saturn, which is the Lord of the Rings, he's personifying the simulation. And here is another way that they did that. This is called a ziggurat, which is the Babel Tower. Again, the spinal cord, the stairway to heaven. The word ziggurat comes from the word Zakaru. And Zakaru is related to the word Zaka, which is what you will find in the etymology of Zakuru, which is the word Sakara. So when we say Zakaru, the Egyptian word for that would be Sakara, and Zakaru became the word ziggurat, and that Sakara is just a ziggurat or step pyramid representing the same concept. Everybody once knew this knowledge, and this is what our Christmas tree is represent: the secrets of the Babylonians and the Egyptians and the ancient world, which was the knowledge of the spinal cord, the central nervous system. If you want to learn more about the ziggurat concept, the Zakaru concept, and the Sumerians, the Babylonians, as it relates to the Babel Tower, check out the description area, because what I have there is a link to a whole nother presentation going in on that in detail. So again, we've already went over the fact that Yahweh is personifying the pineal gland, and that Yahweh is quote unquote the most high. And I already went over why Yahweh is the most high. We don't need to be redundant. What I wanted to point out in synchronicity to that was when we say the word pineal, it is related to the word pinnacle or pinnacle, which means the zenith. Zen means to meditate, to be in a place of comfortable meditation, right? Zen. And that's the highest form of heaven or peace. And whenever we see Yahweh or the Most High, he's in the pose of the Zen master, the one whose eyes is closed and they seem to be projecting their consciousness. And this is literally what's going on. The God Yahweh is literally personifying the mind, projecting itself into the underworld, into the body, and projecting the body into creation. So all of these rays of light that we see coming from El are connected to the body. And El is like the puppet master, using all of these rays of light, which is each one of these rays of light, it connects to a chakra point. It ends up being one of the chakra frequencies. And these are the buttons that's pushed that control our avatar, or what's called the 7 deadly sins. So this is how our body is controlled by our mind in the earth realm. And these are the control mechanisms. These are the strings that controls the puppet and the science behind how the mind controls the body. So El is the Most High, and he represents the pinnacle or the zenith point. And now we see how all of those words tie in as well. Another title is the Holy of Holies. And when we say Holy of Holies, that is literally the highest point in the ziggurat. Right here, that would be the room at the top of the ziggurat, or the star at the top of your Christmas tree. Like I said, if you ever watch that movie, The Platform, it's just another way of them teaching you that. It's a movie about the Babel Tower that we're in. The fact that the lower you go, the more hellish it is. The higher you go, the more of a heavenly experience it is. And when you get up to the most high room, you get to break out the prison itself. Because at the end of the day, this whole platform tower prison system was just that. It was a prison system. And even though the highest floors get the best service and get treated well, you still in prison. So the highest point at the top would be no floor at all. Okay? And that means you free from the prison. And that's the secret to why the pyramid is missing a capstone. It's the same reason to why It has to be an escape room to get out of this thing. And they said Santa Claus come up and down a chimney. And they made this movie the platform to show us the concept of the Kundalini rising up the spinal cord, going through each one of the spinal discs until it frees itself from the rebirth cycle and frees itself from the body. So this whole movie is about consciousness rising, or the serpent rising up, what they said, Jesus rising up from the cross. And that's why the serpent and Christ both was risen up. This is Kundalini rising up the spinal cord through all of the spinal discs, which each one of these discs is a dimensional plane. And this spinal cord represents the spinal cord of Osiris, which is the spinal cord of your base reality macro body that's in Eden. You're trapped inside of that body while it's asleep now. It's like a sleeping mummy, sleeping statue waiting to get up. And it'll get up the moment your consciousness rise all the way up to the top and seats itself at the seat of the soul in your base reality body. It's climbing a stairway right now, which each one of these dimensional planes is one of the heads of this 7-headed beast that we are. And we got to seat ourselves in each of these heads till we get to the most high head, which is this spot that we're calling the Holy of Holies. I think it's interesting that we use the word holy, because what we're talking about here is the whole that's in the middle of the universe that's allowing for ascension and descension. You know that the H is silent, so you get Ole or Allah, and once again, this play on the word Elohim and all of that good stuff. So just like with Plato's Atlantis, each one of these dimensional planes is stacked up on the other one, with the highest one being the most blissful experience. And that's the one where we are detached. We're not bound by Chronos. We can be time travelers in and out of the simulation like Neo in the Matrix. You ain't bound and stuck in the Matrix like he was before they snatched him out. In a lot of cosmologies, you will see like a step pyramid, but it'll be split up in circles. And the wide circles will be at the base and the smallest circles will be at the top. But as it climaxes to the top point, it just stops and it never caps itself off. It's almost like it's unfinished, but it's not though. It's that missing capstone. It's the fact that that's the star at the top of the Christmas tree. It's the least dense reality represented by pure light. In this realm, there is no matter, no density. It's pure light. So below this realm is when physicalities start to form in different density layers, with the most dense universes being at the bottom. So by the time you ascend all the way to the top, the realms are getting least dense. They get so less dense that the most high or highest realm is completely free of all matter. It's just pure light. And the word light itself is related to the opposite of heavy. When something is light, right? It ain't heavy. But the way they drew this out was this. So this is how they drew it out. And they was basically saying that that star right there represents the Most High. All of the planes beneath that represent when this base reality, which is free of matter, is pure light, is when light starts to express itself as a hologram. And that's when light get weight. When light is free to just expand and not have dimensions, it weighs nothing at all. But once that same light start to create a torus field and manifest itself as a hologram called an avatar, that very act of toroidal flow creates this concept of weight. So in a lot of symbolism, we will see, like for example, the god Saturn with all of the rings around his waist. This would be like this star right here in the middle of all these rings. Another way we see this, we see it on the money all the time. That's the star at the top of the Christmas tree. We ascend up these dimensional planes, but they get lighter and lighter, and it gets so light to physicality, or the material world as we know it cease to exist. And we enter this realm of heaven. Now the word heaven is the word avion or avon, dealing with aviation, dealing with something that's hovering. When you say hover, that's the word hover. This is a kingdom that's so light, it's literally hovering above all of the other dense worlds. It's the Most High, the Holy of Holies. Hover is hover. And this is the thing that is literally hovering over all of the rest, because it is the most lightest one in every sense of the word. It is the most lightest because it ain't as heavy as all of the rest of them, but it's also the most lightest because it's the most brightest. It's the most brightest, the most illuminated. So there are several symbols that represent this concept. Even when you see man and woman get married, they will have a wedding cake that's stacked up like this. And at the top, you won't have a capstone. They will stop the pyramid from reaching a capstone, and they'll just cap it off with the man and the woman, with like a bride and groom or some at the top of the cake. But they never reach a point. This is the whole Babel concept. The word hova is also related to the word ovary. And that ovo that we see is also avi or ava. In some cultures, they say ava. Like I said, that's the root word of aviation. The word ava means life. And when we say ava or eve or oyo or ovo, it's all the same thing, dealing with that which gives life, which is the uterus. And something else I wanted to point out on the board real quick about ovo, ava, dealing with the uterus. This is the female uterus, and the whole sacred geometry of the female's womb is spelling out ovo. O-V-O. And in a lot of cultures, because the alphabet symbols are different, this can be seen as a lowercase a. So Ava. This can be seen also as a lowercase e. So it can be Eve. They're just spirals. The lowercase a is in this spiral right here. The lowercase e is in this spiral right here. The O is there. So you will get all of these names: Ovo, Ava, Eve, and whatever alphabet people will find in there, and they will just put the V in the middle, and there you go. Like AV, right? Because you can see this as a lowercase I. You can see this stick right here and this as a lowercase I. This can become Ava, AVI for like aviation. So a lot of these words are based upon a sacred geometry of more advanced concepts. There's another deity worshipped by the Hindu, which is an elephant by the name of Ganesh. Ganesh is just a personification of the uterus, as we can see here. And the reason I brought up Ganesh is because another deity that is synced with all of the others I mentioned was Anubis, Cannabis, Canopus, all of these serpent deities. Canopus is another name of a form of Yahweh as a serpent, and Canopus is another way of saying cannabis. You see the word Anubis is in the word cannabis. You see the word Anu is in the god Anubis. Now the word Anu means circle. Not to be vulgar, but that's why we say anus. The circle associated with these deities is dealing with Saturn. It's dealing with everything I've been teaching you previously about the rings and the layers and all of that good stuff. And when we say canopus, pronouncing the CH and then an N gives you this canopus, right? And then when you're saying canopus, remember that canopus is just another god that is synonymous with Saturn, and that the word canopus is really the word canopies. Canopies. The reason the word cannabis is associated with Saturn is because Saturn is the snake that eats itself. That's a cannibal act. The reason the word cannabis is associated with Mary Jane, which is the name of Maru and Mary, it's because if you look at a cannabis leaf, it is all of the leaves that span out from the central point like the magnetic ley lines at the North Pole. And it's based on the same sacred geometry, which is why a marijuana plant looks like Mama Cali with all the arms. A lot of the names we were giving things was based on the shape of those things and the sacred geometry of those things. So like I said, when you say canopus, the Quran teach that the sky unfolded like a canopy. And if you look at the netters or the dimensional planes, they are arches within arches or a bunch of canopies within canopies. And the big canopies are eating up the smaller canopies. And this just look like a situation where it's big fish eat little fish. Now that would be what? An act of cannibalism. So when you see how the phonetics of these words sound similar, and you see how they relate when you start getting into the cosmology. So when we say canopus or canopus, we're saying canopies, which is another name for the god Saturn, because him with all his rings represent all of the layers of the atmosphere, or all of the canopies, all of the netters, all of the dimensional planes. So there you go, canopies, which is canopus, and how you tie that in with cannabis. So we know that the uterus takes the shape of a bull, and that later on they started to personify the uterus as a bull. And like I told you earlier, when we lost the advanced knowledge behind the uterus, we simply resorted to idol worship and simply worshiping the bull. But we didn't know the knowledge of what it was personifying. Like I mentioned earlier in the metallurgy section, dealing with the golden calf. So we know that when we say Taurus, which is the bull, you can't pronounce the word uterus without saying Taurus. So when we say uterus, we're literally saying the word Taurus as well. Now the word Taurus is also a 2-letter word. You can break it down like this. Just like I said about the path of ascension, and just like I pointed out a minute ago with the platform movie, all of this is about our consciousness climbing the stairway to heaven through a series of rebirths, through a series of being born again. The Hindu says 7 times before we break through this cycle. When we go back to the whiteboard, again, the word Taurus is also another way of saying to raise, to rise. Our soul is being lifted up the stairway of heaven through many birth cycles. And when we say uterus, it's the mothership that is allowing us to ascend, or that is allowing us to raise up, which is why I showed you that image of Oshun with the portal open. So the uterus, to rise, to raise. to be born again into your greater version, your highest self, or what they call the Holy of Holies. So again, the uterus is the Taurus, and the Taurus is a bull. The word bull is also the word bowl, because this bowl is holding our soul. It's the lamp that's housing the genie. We're in the belly of the beast. Again, the bell and belly is dealing with bull, bowl, and Moloch shaped just like a bell. Even when we say the word Hathor, the word ether or ether is there. The word ether. Your mama and daddy was responsible for opening up the gates into creation for you. Like, again, I told you, there are like 6-9 vortex winds. So when you say mother, if you take the M off, you get other or ether. Another way of saying ether, aether, other. If you take the F off of father, what do you get? Aether. If you take the H off of Hathor, what do you get? Aether. All of these are dealing with the ether, the layers of reality, the nethers, the ethers. So just pay attention to the fact that all of the symbols that was dealing with Moses was symbols he learned from the Egyptians, cows and snakes. Those were the symbols that was associated with Moses, a serpent staff and also a golden calf. These were symbols we saw all the time in Egypt, serpents and cows. Hathor was big in Egypt, and the serpent was very big in Egypt. And the secrets behind these symbols, these serpents, these cows, are what I'm sharing with you now. The secrets of life and death and rebirth. That's what the Egyptians had mastered. Immortality, breaking the matrix, splitting the sea, which is what Moses did. The Bible even tell you Moses was learned in all the way of the Egyptians. So again, the name El is the root word of the name Elliot. The name Elliot means the ruler of the elves, or elf ruler. Now, who is the elf ruler? We call him Santa. Again, Santa is just another form of Satan. Just like Satan rules the demons, Santa rules the elves. Same concept. So remember that the words AL and EL are all dealing with this God El. And that's why you find them being the root words of words like alternative, which is what this God did. He made alternative realities. So when you say alternative, you get this root word AL. In each of these alternative universes, we exist under a different alias. These are the many false names of God. They tell you that the many blasphemous names of God was written on the head of the beast. The beast is Leviathan. Remember, when you say Leviathan, you're saying the word Atan. Levi is dealing with a levy or dam. So when you say Leviathan, it's another way of saying damnation or damn Atan, or the genie in a lamp, the mind and the body. Is represented by Leviathan, or the Nagini, the serpent, the Kundalini, and all of this stuff. Our name is slightly different in each one of these universes, because every time that the base reality was copied, just like in a computer program, it can't name all of the copies the same name. So it got to distinguish the file under a different name. And these are the many names of God. But God only has one name, and that is no name at all. Infinity. There's no word you can call the hidden one, because all language itself comes from this hidden one. The name of God can't be spoken, because the true name of God don't even exist in the realm of earth, water, wind, and fire. And that's where we speak at. You speak with your throat, with your body, by vibrating the atmosphere and air around you. In the realm of heaven, or where the Most High God at, it ain't like the realm of earth, water, wind, and fire. You can't speak the name of God. You can think it, you can ponder it. The true God exists on a dimension above words themselves, in the realm of thought. So think of a society of beings that don't gotta talk to each other. They can use telekinesis. They can just swap thoughts. In a society like that, it wouldn't be no miscommunications and, oh man, I didn't understand what you were saying. I can just give you my feelings. I can show you my thoughts and beam them into your mind. We can share thoughts. There's no way, no room for error. No way people will be killing each other because, man, I thought he was disrespecting me. In this utopia, the beings have made it past the language barrier, which is one of the big causes of conflict among humanity. So in the realm of God, it's the realm of pure thought, pure mind, and silence. You can't speak the name of God because God exists in a realm where words themselves don't even exist. So as the light of the Most High projects, it starts off as a singularity, and then it starts to expand its light into many, many rays. And in the Bible, this is what they're referring to when they're talking about this singular God, El, giving birth to the Elohim, the plural word. So you're going from a singular concept to a plural concept. This is the science behind how light radiates, how light shines from a singular source and expands itself all around that source into many rays. And these many rays all creates the alternative realities that are all born from the base reality. So again, each ray that is coming from the base is given the name of the God at the base reality, a slightly alternate name based upon the falling angle of light being a different tonal frequency of the universe. So depending on what corner that I'm standing in my room, it depends on what tone of voice you're gonna get from me. And this is the science you get into when you get into acoustics. So depending on where I'm standing at in my room, it'll even dictate the sound of my voice and the tone of it. This is saying that all of the notes on a musical scale is born from 0 degrees. It's born from the center of the universe. All of the numbers in math, all of the letters in the alphabet system are all born from 0. They taught us 0 was nothing, but 0 is a dense form of everything, like a seed. A seed ain't nothing. It's a whole tree in there when you put it in the ground. So the expansion of the seed is the tree. And just like that, our universe expanded from a point of singularity. They call that the Big Bang. But this is numbers born from 0. 0 is a singular concept. It represents infinity. It don't represent nothing. This is why all of the numbers come out of it. We've been taught wrong. The people that invented the 0 were Vedics. They were flat earthers, by the way. And they taught the concept of the 0 the way that I'm giving it to you now. So again, each of these alternate realities, remember that root word all or el, each of these alternative universes, your name is slightly different. So in each of these worlds, you can say that the real you is this base God, Santa, is at the center. And you're projecting all of these many avatars of yourself around that base self. And each of these avatars is a false name of God. This is the multiple-headed beast that Revelation spoke of with all the many blasphemous names of gods written on them. Because the name of your body ain't the name of your soul, so to speak, is what the ancestors was trying to teach. We're not our bodies. The body is taking on a false name of the soul, is the way they was interpreting this. So your name is like an alias in each of these alternate universes. This is why we get the name El in the word alias. We also see that the word El is in the word elf. The concept of Santa Claus with a bunch of elves is no different than the concept of Vishnu with a bunch of avatars. This is to say that the central self gave birth to all of these alternative selves around it. And you can't say the word self without saying the word elf. You can't say the word selves without saying elves. All of the selves are elves. You can't say the word shelf without saying elf. All of the shelves exist around the North Pole, which is center or Santa. So the concept of Santa and the elves are literally dealing with the center of the earth and the dimensional planes. They started to teach this stuff in fairy tale and different stories like I've been showing you. And when we lost the original knowledge of all this stuff, we just got caught up in the fairy tales and symbolism and idolatry like what the world is today. All of these symbols and rituals and traditions, nobody know the deeper meaning of them, but they just partake in them and they don't ask questions just because it's tradition. We went over earlier how the word Yahweh ties into the title of Loaf Eater, and I broke that down to you already. One thing I wanted to point out was the etymology of loaf. This halaf word is another way of saying elf, which is shelf, how the loaves are cut. We see how that tied into the whole cosmology. So, but here's another word, lev, again, which is levy, leviathan. You see what I'm saying? What I find is interesting is right here, it means to raise higher, a tower. Again, this is all relevant to the Babel Tower, to raise higher. Remember, to raise is Taurus. I just went over that. I just want to show you that we're so spot on with all of this syncretism. So another word for loaf is to basically be lazy. When somebody say, quit loafing around. If somebody call you a loafer, right? What a loafer is an idler. They say an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Because what we talking about, the loaf eater, the loaves are the netters. And the loafers are the people that are born in these netters over and over and over, and they don't ask questions. That's an idle mind. They just wasting time here and they ain't really asking what's important, the important questions about themselves and their spirit or none of that stuff. That's the difference between all of us and most of the world. When it's their time and they get tired of this place and they tired of loafing around, then they'll start asking the questions that lead them out the matrix. So we literally call people loafers who waste time, right? We call them vagabonds. A loaf eater is a household servant. That's the people that's in this world and they ain't waking up. They their own worst enemy because they got closed minds. So they are basically household servants for the devil. It literally means one who eats the bread of his master. Why you think that the Bible say, give us this day our daily bread? That's what I'm telling y'all, man. This is the God that keep resetting time. So if time is cut up in bread loaves, he keep breaking the bread and distributing it throughout the table. Chronos, which is Jesus breaking the bread. This is why we take communion and we break the bread. It's symbolic of the loaf eater. The one that's serving y'all time, the one that's creating a building for you to be served out your time, is like a warden in a prison. He the owner of a prison. He's providing the building for you to be served time on a platter, which is the earth. You could say Kronos has a restaurant, and what's on the menu is time, and you're being served. So the word loafer is one who eats the bread of his master, meaning you eating the bread is you being born over and over in time, in cycles of time and reincarnation into the netters, into the net. You being a household servant under this deity called the Lord or the Loaf God. Remember earlier when we did our etymology that the word Yahweh led us to the word husband, but it also led us to the word lady. And I was pointing out to you, how can it be both? And I went over that. Well, one thing I wanted to point out was the word lady has the root word of lad, and a lad is not a lady. It's a young boy. A lad is a foot soldier, a young male servant. So again, right, we find this sort of hypocrisy of the word with what I asked earlier. How can the word Yahweh mean both husband and lady? Now, when we see this deity, it's often an androgynous deity, which is implementing both genders in this one deity. And we also see this same confusion in the name and many titles. That's because, again, like I said, when we started blending all of these symbols together, it caused the confusion of Babylon that we're in today. And one of those many confusing things being, like I'm showing now, when we say lady, we're really referring to a young male servant. So how can the word lady be both used for female and the male? Jesus Christ, or the young lad that we see that's virgin born and all of these Messiah stories, it wasn't always a boy. The patriarchal stories are the newest ones. Before that, it was Gaia. It was different goddesses, like I was showing you earlier, Oshun and others. At first, it was a lady. And then when the patriarchs took over, they started personifying it under a young boy. So then we see the word lady transitioning to the word lad. So just to build on this whole loaf eater concept, and again, a loafer being one who eats the bread of his master, but the one that's given us this day, our daily bread, is Kronos. This is why they're referring to time in relation to bread. Give us this day, which each day symbolizes time being reset on a small scale. Each age symbolizes time being reset on a greater scale. But to build more on this concept, the word Lord is also related to the word Harold. Yep, the name Harold, Harold. The ROLD at the end of Harold is really the word Lord. And the word was literally hallowed, and it became Harold. There was also a god by the name of Hor-Aha, which was Hor-Allah, which is another play on Harold, or harlot, or hallowed, because the great whore is also another symbol that's personifying this concept, and we call her harlot or halot. Hallard. All of these words are related. The word Harold means army commander, and we just read that the multitude of Yahweh is no different than the avatars of Vishnu. The commander of this army would be the Most High, the mind having control over all of its many avatars. So the mind created the many avatars. Another way they showed this was a god breaking the bread. into many slices, dealing with how the mind creates time and occupies each dimension of time by projecting itself into that particular pocket of time in an avatar in that particular alternative universe. So we're constantly being told stories about men breaking bread. And this is no different than what I was explaining on my main channel about karate people stacking the bricks and breaking them down the middle. The symbol of Zeus is the crack that we see that go through all of the bricks. That crack is the crease or the Christ. This the one that's breaking through all of the netters. And so when they break the bricks, they call out on the name of God, Hayah, the Most High Yah. So breaking those bricks is the same science of how the netters are broken at the North Pole. And I said all that to tie it into Jesus breaking the bread. And don't forget, Jesus fed the crowd with fishes and loaves. Why fishes and loaves? Because the torus field has been often compared to loaves of bread. The chakra layers around the body have often been compared to loaves of bread. And if you look at the middle of the torus field, you will see a fish right there. And the outside of the torus field is bread. We can literally sum this up as a fish sandwich, as we call it in the South. We don't call it a fish sandwich. We call it a fish sandwich. In the middle of the torus field is your fish. That's your meat. That's where all the ley lines meet at. And around that is the bread. So Jesus fed the crowd with fishes and loaves. This is talking about the science of manifestation of conception and of the toroidal field. And this science is being personified as Jesus. Like I've been showing you this whole stream, all of these graven images are just personifying advanced science. Here is a collage I made, and we can see an image of Yahweh on the left releasing the bird. And this, again, Yahweh represents the seat of the soul, which is seated in heaven. And God don't come off his throne. When God want to come to the earth, he projects his mind into a body. And that's signified by Yahweh releasing the dove, which is the consciousness from Eden. And this is how you became a fallen angel. The dove went out into the watery world, which is the realm of creation. So just like we see Yahweh on the left, we see Noah on the right. And they both showing us the same concept. So you can see I'm not reaching. All of these deities are teaching us the same science. So just like on this next image, I'm showing you again a picture of the mind inside of the brain. The dude dressed in all black. If you look at his positioning, you can see that even in this collage, if you look at Noah on that ark, they got his hands like that for a reason. People holding their hands like that for a reason, because it's trying to teach us about the higher science of the mind, which governs the material world. Mind over matter, God over the earth, mind over the body, mastering the self. When we look at the images of the mind seated in the brain, this is why they got these images of Yahweh seating himself in the clouds. Our brain is no different than cloud space storage. And when they talk about Aladdin flying on a magic carpet, they talking about the mind which seats itself inside of the body at the core of the brain in order for it to travel through the heavens. This is how the mind travels the heavens. It projects itself from avatar to avatar. The brain is like a big cushion to catch the soul when it projects from one body to the next. Boom. it lands in a soft clouds that we call the brain. That's how this dude in all black gets seated in the brain. He fell there. He's a fallen angel. And you can look at the brain like a trampoline net. It caught him. As the soul falls into this cloud that we call the brain, just like a diver falling into a swimming pool, you get this little dent that forms in the water, a little ripple effect and a dent that's formed at the point where you fell at, like an impression in the middle of a trampoline. And that's literally what we see at the crown chakra. The crown chakra represents your soul falling from heaven. The root chakra represents your soul climbing from hell. So you fell up and down, and both the high self and the low self crashed into each other at the heart chakra. And that's why the heart chakra is one triangle pointed up and one triangle pointed down. It's the merging of the high self and low self coming together, crashing in the middle. So that's why Christ said, I'm knocking at the heart. Christ representing the crash, Christ, which is the heart, the earth god. If you rearrange the word heart, it's earth. It's in between the two thieves, the crown and the root, which is pulling energy from it. Just like someone falling in water, they will have this big impression like a crater, and that's represented by the crown chakra. The way that the crown chakra implodes into the brain shows you the path by which your consciousness fell into the brain. That's why it's making this whole shape going down like that, like a trampoline net caught you, because that's how the brain captured the consciousness. So what's gonna happen is just like a trampoline, because you fell from such a high place, that it take a minute for this thing to absorb you. You still making your impact. This thing ain't really stretched out as much as it could. And when it finally stretched to a point where it can't make a deeper impression no more because it absorbed all the tension of your fall, when you get way to the bottom point, that's when your casket is going to go in the ground at a funeral. And from there, boom, you'll bounce back up again just like a trampoline. And that energy will take you to your next destination. And then guess what? You will be captured in another brain, another self. And just like a trampoline, it will absorb all that energy. And the absorption of that energy from your fall is how your energy get inside the body, how the body absorbed the energy of the fallen soul and took that pattern of an impression from both sides and formed a body with that energy. The body is formed out of the energy of the soul's impact when it fell into this dimension. Nothing is wasted. All that energy was used. So just like a trampoline, when you jump in the middle to be able to shoot up, you got to go all the way down to go all the way up. And going all the way down is going into the grave so that the soul can fly back out like a bird, just like jumping in the middle of a trampoline. That's the law of the universe. You got to give some to get some. If I tell you to jump up right now, the first thing you're going to do is bend down first. The people that bend down the lowest tend to jump up the highest. It's like a spring. The more I compress a spring and compress all that energy into a small point, when I release it, it's gonna be that much violent. So that's why it's called a spring and it looks like a kundalini. Your kundalini is at the base of the spine for a reason, because it's like a spring that's being pushed all the way down as far as it can go. And I know you feel like, man, I'm going through a lot. It's feel like something holding me back. Something is holding you back. It's like you jumped in the middle of a trampoline and you saying something pulling me down. Yeah, that's the trampoline absorbing your fall, creating an impression. And it's gonna bounce you back up with all that energy though. So when it feel like this world is pulling us back, it's cause you are a bullet in the chamber and you gotta be cocked back first before you can be shot out. This is a law of the universe. So we experience death before we experience birth, just like you bend down before you jump up. That's why we're fallen angels. This is the same concept of a seed going into the ground. When you throw a seed into the ground, that seed is a fallen angel experiencing death. It's in darkness saying, I got to rise up. The Kundalini rising is the seed breaking out of its shell casing, seeking the light. The seed, when it was casted down into darkness, experiences death, which is darkness. And then it experiences life as it rises up from what we call death. Death is a location in the universe, underworld, underground. And all seeds must start underground. What is underground? I showed you the image earlier of the ripples on the moon. We're under a particular gradient, a level, a layer. And this layer is made out of this, what they call luminiferous ether. It's like water. It's a container for all the elements. So even when you say the word water, you take the W off, you get aether or ether. We are seeds we're in an underworld sort of pocket of reality because we're babies. Babylon is Babyland. It's the underworld. All babies are born in the underworld, man. Because a seed is a baby tree. And it's born, and we got to throw it in the ground in the underworld for it to become a tree. And for us to rise up to our greatness, which is the word Taurus, to rise. Your Taurus field is like you're a seed in the ground. If you can really see what you are a big bubble of energy. And at the core of that big bubble of energy, it's the same shape that we see at the core of an apple, which is the human body, a hyperboloid, Vitruvian man. So in essence, you are a seed. And your whole awakening process is you trying to break out of your shell casing to see beyond the veil into the real reality. Outside the cave, as Plato said. So all babies start in the underworld, just like all seeds start underground. These are universal laws. And again, the reason we see all of these pictures of Yahweh hovering in the clouds and Saturn inside of the rings, it just represents the mind, which is at the middle, projecting its many avatars around it, or chakra layers, like I said. So that's why we see the rainbow always over Noah's Ark. But I just thought it was interesting. This is another god called Anu, which is the mind breaking up out of the body. You can see him getting his wings, representing the mind coming up out the skull, up out the, having an out-of-body experience, breaking free from the matrix, being multidimensional, meaning you can come back into your body whenever you want and get out when you want. You're no longer bound to it, is what it means. You're loose now. Lucifer mean a loose fire or a loose flame. Your kundalini is the word kundalini. It's a flame, a ball of light. When that ball of light become free from the matrix, they call it a loose fire, a Lucifer, Luciferian. You're one of the archons that you speak of now. Being an archon ain't got nothing to do with being bad or good. It got something to do with having this ability to be able to walk in and out of the simulation like Neo. And remember, the good guys and the bad guys had that ability. Neo was the good guys. but he was fighting the bad guys. But they all can leave and exit the matrix. They all are archons for having that ability. But just like you got good humans and bad humans, you got good gods and bad gods, or good archons and bad archons. So remember that the word archon is just a play on the word anchor. And that this ability means that one is anchored to the base reality and able to project into any one of the many different alternate realities at any given time. Is a boundless deity, or an anchored deity, meaning its consciousness is anchored at the base reality. And it's locked there. When they say it's up and it's stuck, right? It's anchored, and from that position, just like we see with Yahweh, it can control all of his many drones, just like a queen bee in the middle of the hive, and she could control every drone around her. So I wanted to revisit the etymology of Odin, the chief Teutonic god, or the All-Father. When we're talking about the All-Father, that's the same title of this God of the Bible, like I mentioned earlier. But the All-Father is referring to the mind, which is the commander and the father of all the avatars. Your mind is the singular controller of all of your many avatars. And another title for that is the All-Father. It's the father of the hive mind, or the father of the Borg. Our mind power was reverse engineered, and AI operates like our mind. So our mind is like El controlling all of his avatars, and that's what AI is. AI is a singularity. It's a single consciousness. It's not many different consciousness. It's one single intelligence that's manifesting itself as Alexa, ChatGPT, Siri. Like this one singular intelligence called AI can manifest itself into many different personalities and versions of this one intelligence. And that's what we see happening on the earth. The one becoming many, or El becoming the Elohim. It's been this way for a long time, where man has existed with mankind. And mankind is the same thing we are. They're just the external technology that represent our internal spiritual technology. So I wouldn't even use the word technology. It's basically our natural spiritual biology, basically our spirit body, our spiritual biology, spiritual anatomy. Basically, that's the whole thing about AI and Saturn. They represent the outer realm. Everything about them is explosion. Everything about us is implosion, going within. And this is the difference between God and devil, in and out. In is up, out is down, and that's heaven versus hell. If you want to go up, you got to go in. If you want to go down, you got to go out. So we went outside of Eden and we fell down into underworlds. So going in is ascending and going out is descending. Everything at the outer world is based on outward concepts, going outside of yourself for answers. That's why these simulations will never find the answer, because they ain't never gonna go within. Everything we see around us is external symbolism representing what's going on in us. So these places are just serving like classrooms that for us to interact with, to discover who we are for real inside. And it's going to take some of us more time than others to make that discovery. So another name for Odin, or the father of the hive mind, the All-Father, is Yggdrasil. And so we know that this god is synonymous with Yahweh, which means egg keeper. And when we say Yggdrasil, if you look at the Nordic cosmology and you compare it to this god called Ishtar, you can see that the many stargates that's on this Nordic tree represent the many eggs that we see on Ishtar. Ishtar is basically personifying the Nordic tree of life. So each of these little eggs around the Nordic tree are gateways that lead to alternate universes and to alternate versions of the self. So when we look at Ishtar, he represents Santa, or the center self that's at the base reality, and all of the eggs on him represent his many avatars that exist on this tree of life that he's personifying himself as. There's other forms of this concept, like with the demon legion, where this one entity is saying, for we are many. You got this one body speaking in plural terms. That's how you're going to be. When we recollect all of our avatars and rise up to our highest form, we will be able to access any one of these versions of ourselves at any given time. So you will be speaking like the chief demon legion. Think of every version of yourself that ever had a lifetime. All of those many experiences sharing one body. That's what you are as your greatest form. A culmination of all the experiences that you ever went through in the multiverse. So what that looked like is this one deity that's made out of a bunch of smaller deities coming together. And that's how you get this concept of legion, this one demon that's made out of a bunch of people. You get this same concept in the church when they talk about each saint being a unit in the body of Christ. You get it in the scary movies where they show you the demon that's devouring souls and making one entity with a bunch of people whose souls he siphoned. And at any given moment, any of the souls that he siphoned, he can turn into that person. But this same concept is how when we rise up out of this simulation, we will be able to exist as any of the many manifestations of the self at any given time. You will be a multi-dimensional being. And I'm talking about the 10-year-old you to the 50-year-old you. You can manifest as any of these versions of you at any given point in time. All of that knowledge will be in one version. It'll be summed up and consolidated into one version. And that will be your greatest version. So Yggdrasil is another name for Odin. As you can see here, Yahweh is personifying the world tree at the center of the earth, which is why he is covered in a serpent on a lot of these images as well, because that world tree was covered in a serpent. And this is just talking about the Kundalini wrapped around the spinal cord. This is the symbol of God because this is where consciousness resides. This is where the thing that guides the body resides. So if you could compare this whole concept of Yahweh being covered in the serpent or the tree of life wrapped in the serpent, again, to the Orphic egg, you can compare it to Buddha. You could compare it to also a form of Ishtar, Nimrod, Satan, many more. We see Moses holding up a serpent scepter. Pharaoh was holding up the Jedi pillar. Santa holding up the candy cane. We went over the javelin concept. And when we talk about javelin, another way you can look at that is Java land. Because this is the Garden of Eden or the Garden of Adon, Atun. It's the God of Jave or Java is his name. It's Java land. And a javelin is a rod. Now think about that. Why would the earth be Java land? Because nothing exists on this earth without the central nervous system, which is the rod of Asclepius, the Java, the javelin. You have to be connected to exist within a simulation. Ain't nobody playing online that ain't connected to the internet. And your connection is what's represented by this rod, this Jedi pillar. So in addition to the words father, mother, Hathor, remember that the word Hathor is the word Het Heru. And if you play with the word Het Heru, if you take the H off, you get the word Etheru. or ether, etheru. And the word etheru or etheru is the et Heru. Heru is a form of Horus, Jesus the Christ. But the ET is just another play on AI, artificial intelligence, or the fact that extraterrestrial means more Earth. And that the other versions of ourselves is what they calling the aliens. They are really the aliases, not the aliens. And they are extraterrestrials because they represent extra Earths. So Etheru, E.T. Heru, Adonai, which is Adon in AI, because these avatars are our artificial intelligent versions. That's what your body is. It's artificial intelligence. It's a projected hologram. What I find interesting with the word Etheru is that you can see in the word uterus that in some cases they will use the word uteri. And I don't know if that's like some plural form or something like that, but it sounds a lot like etheru, uteri, you know. And then another word they use for uterus is udara. And I thought that that was in relation to uteri, etheru. And I'm just doing a lot of intricate etymology and synchronicity here. I hope you guys like it. The word Hathor means the house above. And that is synonymous with what I was showing you earlier, the house at the top of the ziggurat. That's called a Holy of Holies. In a case of a childbirth, that would be the fetal bag. The house above the uterus would be the fetal bag that's housing the baby. So when you look up the word Hathor, it had two meanings, the house above and the mansion of Horus. Now, Horus represents the newborn baby. The mansion of the baby is the fetal bag of the mother. So the mansion of Horus is basically the fetal bag that's housing the baby, what they call the house above. So just like a baby is housed above the uterus in this chamber called a fetal bag, our whole universe shaped like a uterus, and above it is this base reality that's hovering above all other material realities. And it's just simply a place of light. And just like a baby in the uterus, if the earth is the uterus, which is the bull, Moloch, then above the earth realm, it's the fetal bag where you're literally gonna be born out of the bull, out of the belly of the beast, as they call it. Because right now, in the base reality, we ain't even been born yet. We still are a sperm traveling its way up the vaginal tract in the base reality. Because when our mama and daddy met and gave birth to us, that happened in all of the alternative universes. And in the upper universes, time is slower. So in the highest of highest, or holy of holies, the highest universe, you ain't even made it to the egg yet. When your sperm make it to the egg in that universe, that's when your path of ascension will be over in this universe. You ain't really been born yet. You still a baby waiting to be born in heaven. And how the sperm is finding the egg is you finding the light, the knowledge of how to get out the simulation. This is our fake birth. In the next dimension of reality above this one, because time is moving slower as we go up, your mama and daddy is always just meeting each other all over again as you ascend up the stairway. So this is why every time you die, you're born right on time in the next world. There you go, born again. Because everything is so carefully synced together that your death date is literally your birth date in the next reality. Nothing is randomly happening. Everything is playing out to get you up out of here into our ultimate end goal. So we know that Yahweh and Yahweh is the same deity. And we already compared the barber pole versus the Berber pole, and we compared it with the Moses staff. Yeah, the barber pole is really the pole of the Berbers, because a Berber is the Arabic name for the peoples living in the mountains and deserts of North Africa, west of Egypt, perhaps ultimately from Barbaros, the barbarians, and all this good stuff, as they say. But again, just ancient people that would have had the same spiritual system as Moses. All right, they had a Hamitic language. They would have been learned in the way of Moses. So the barber pole is the Berber pole, and that's basically the Moses staff. Also note that the Demiurge wears a crown of thorns, just like the Statue of Liberty, just like Jesus, and many more interpretations of this concept. Even one of my favorite movies called Hellraiser with Pinwheel. And like I said, Oshun, the goddess Oshun with all the spikes. And just remember what I told you earlier, right? The original egg keeper was dealing with the female ovaries and the uterus. You know, they created Ishtar and all these graven images to take us away from that matriarchal truth. And now here we are today talking about Easter eggs and rabbits and all this stuff when rabbits don't even lay eggs. Remember that the word Jehovah is also a feminine word. So why is it a male deity today? And just like I was saying about in karate or martial arts had nothing to do with fighting at first. It was about a spiritual system, just like yoga, teaching us how to be multidimensional and conquer the self, not to conquer nobody else, because you can't conquer nobody else till you conquer yourself and master yourself. Even if you beat them up, you still lost if you ain't mastered yourself, but you know how to beat everybody up, because that person gonna move on as a spirit and you gonna still be stuck in hell beating everybody up. So we said that when they break the bricks, they call out on the name of God, which is Hayah, which is another spelling of Yahweh, Hayah. So if you look at the throne of Yahweh in the Hebrew cosmos, this is where the bricks are broken in karate. And from that throne, Yahweh creates a lifeline all the way through all the netters to the earth realm, breaking through the 7 seals to get to the earth realm. So when you say Hayah to break through those bricks, it's the most Hayah that is breaking through these netters. So each of these ethers is its own sacred geometry and vibrational frequency. And they all represent the same concept differently, just like in cymatics. I've been teaching y'all this. So just like each alphabet is its own cymatic frequency, its own tone and inflection. That's kind of like how all of the numbers are born from 0, all the alphabets are born from a singularity. And even when you look at the ethers, each one of them is connected to one of these frequencies that I'm speaking of. So even when you say the word letters, right? Letters or letter, if you take the L off, you'll get ether or ether, ether. Because each letter is an ethereal frequency, its own vibrational plane, its own tone. So again, that goes back to cymatics. So just like all of these universes create the multiverse, all of these letters create the alphabets. And because of that, we can form languages. We can have a social structure. So like I was saying earlier about Legion, each one of our avatars will release its experience to our higher version. And that's like the concept of Pokemon. You gotta catch them all. Each one of our versions that exist in one of these bubbles or alternative universes, we're literally going within these things to collect that experience from that avatar. And once we collect them all, we will really be a god or like a supreme being. with all the knowledge of all of our many manifestations and incarnations into one body. Peace and love, we've reached the end of the presentation, and I put a lot of work into this. The objective was to reiterate on a lot of concepts that I've already given you guys, plus blend them in with a bunch of new concepts, as you can see that we went into in this presentation. And I know it was pretty lengthy. I know it was a lot, but that was the goal, to basically dissect this deity called Yahweh and to break it down in a way where it will be a very thorough breakdown, and it would complete all of my other work that I've done on this same deity. So I thought that this presentation would be a good climax to all of my other previous work surrounding Yahweh, and I hope you think the same. In addition to all of the syncretism I've ever done concerning Yahweh, this right here, it just ties everything together, and it dots all of the I's and cross all of the T's. I want to thank you all. I really want to thank you all so much for supporting my work. And these type of presentations really help me a lot to be able to monetize what I do, because we know that I'm heavily censored. So again, I thank you once again, and let everybody else know how awesome this experience was, so that people won't hesitate in the future to do what you did, so that I can have more people trust the process that you're going to get your money's worth. So if you don't think you got your money's worth, I will be doing shows for all of the people that purchased the presentation to be able to speak. Tell us your experience, your honest experience. What can I do to improve it? Or you can just compliment me and let me know, man, you're doing a good job, or whatever your criticism may be. But again, thank you all, and peace and much love, my brothers and sisters. Be safe until next time. Flat motherfucking power.